In build, Otho was a small man with bow legs and feet that stuck out at each side. Vain, he had his body plucked of hairs by servants. He even wore a wig to conceal his thinning hair. Apparently so well made was this wig that no one suspected. But in his claim for the throne, Otho had made a vital miscalculation. Although he was popular with the Praetorians and with some of the troops he had accompanied on his way back to Rome, he had very little links to the army at all. In his role as governor in Lusitania, he had not even had control of a legion, and yet he depended more completely on the soldiers' support than any of his predecessors. His lack of contacts in the army, therefore, also meant he had little chance to gauge the mood among the troops. Otho was hence completely taken by surprise to learn that in Germany Vitellius had risen to contest his throne. Gaul and Spain immediately declared for Vitellius. Otho tried to avoid civil war by offering to share power with Vitellius as joint emperor. He even proposed a marriage to Vitellius' daughter, though Vitellius would have none of it, and by March his legions were on the move. Otho employed a simple strategy. He moved north to delay Vitellius' advance into Italy. The Danubian legions had declared for Otho, and hence the weight of superior forces was on the emperor's side, though on the Danube those legions were useless to him. They had to march into Italy first. To successfully delay Vitellius' troops in effect meant to win the war, and the powerful Danubian troops were on their way to come to Otho's aid. Vitellius' generals, Valens and Caecina, knew well that time was on Otho's side. Hence they forced a fight by beginning the construction of a bridge which would lead them over the Po River into Italy. Otho was left with only two options. Either he would withdraw deeper and deeper into Italy, away from Vitellius' troops, but so too away from the Danubian troops, or he would stand and fight. Otho decided to fight. His army was then totally defeated at Cremona on the 14th of April AD 69. When the news of the defeat reached Otho at Brixilium the following day, the emperor knew himself defeated. Advising his friends and family to take what measures they could for their own safety, he retired to his room to sleep, then stabbed himself to death at dawn the next day, the 16th of April AD 69. It may well even be that Otho's suicide was committed in order to spare his country from civil war. Controversially as he had come to power, many Romans learned to respect Otho in his death. In fact, many could hardly believe that a renowned former party companion of Nero's had chosen such a gracious end. So impressed were the soldiers by Otho's final act of courage, that some even threw themselves on the funeral pyre to die with their emperor. Otho's ashes were placed within a modest monument. He had reigned only 3 months, but in his short time had shown more wisdom and grace than anyone had expected. Poppaea Sabina. Poppaea was married first to Rubrius Crispinus, then to the future brief emperor Otho. When Poppaea became mistress of the emperor Nero, Otho's friend, Nero appointed Otho to an important post as governor of Lusitae. Nero married Poppaea, and Poppaea was given the title Augusta. Poppaea and Nero had a daughter, Claudia, who did not live long. According to the stories told of her, Poppaea urged Nero to kill his mother, Agrippina the Younger, and to later murder his first wife, Octavia. She is also reported to have persuaded Nero to kill the philosopher Seneca, who had supported Nero's previous mistress, Actae Claudia. Poppaea is believed to have stirred Nero to attack Christians after the fire of Rome and to have helped free Jewish priests at the request of Josephus. Nero supposedly kicked her when she was pregnant in 65 CE, and she died. After her death, Poppaea was honored as divine. The man who killed his son for his gluttony and his coarse vices in the year of the 4 emperors. Vitellius was born in AD 15. He was born into a well-off family, son to Sextilia and Lucius Vitellius. Vitellius' father, Lucius Vitellius, 3 times held the office of consul, as well as once being the emperor's fellow consul. Eventually, he would marry Petronia, whom would bear him a son, Petronius, who Vitellius would later kill. Then, by his second wife, Galeria Fundana, he would father a second son and a daughter, Galeria. Vitellius himself became consul in AD 48 and later became proconsul of Africa in about AD 61 to 62. Vitellius was a man of some learning and knowledge of government, but little military skill or experience. Therefore, his appointment by Galba to his command in Lower Germany had taken most people by surprise. When Vitellius reached his troops in November AD 68, they were already considering rebellion against the loathed Emperor Galba. In particular, the German armies were still angry at Galba for refusing them a reward for their part in suppressing Julius Vindex. On the 2nd of January AD 69, learning that the legions in Upper Germany had refused to swear allegiance to Galba, Vitellius' men in Lower Germany, following the example of their commander Fabius Valens, hailed Vitellius emperor. The army then set out for Rome, not led by Vitellius himself, for he possessed no knowledge of warfare, but by his generals Caecina and Valens. They had already advanced 150 miles towards Rome when they learned that Galba had been killed and Otho now had taken the throne. But they continued on undeterred. They crossed the Alps in March and then met Otho's forces near Cremona Bedracium along the river Po. The Danubian legion had declared for Otho, and hence the weight of superior forces was on the emperor's side. Though on the Danube those legions were useless to him. They had to march into Italy first. For now Otho's side was still the lesser one. Caecina and Valens appreciated that if they would be successfully delayed by Otho's forces, they would lose the war. So they devised a way by which to force the fight. They began the construction of a bridge which would lead them over the Po River into Italy. Otho was hence compelled to fight, and his army was comprehensively defeated at Cremona the 14th of April AD 69. Otho committed suicide on the 16th of April AD 69. When learning of this news, a joyous Vitellius set out for Rome, his voyage being seen by many as an endless, decadent feast, not merely by him, but so too by his army. The new emperor and his entourage entered Rome in brash triumph against in the end of June. However, things remained peaceful. There were few executions and arrests. Vitellius even kept many of Otho's officials in his administration, even granting amnesty to Otho's brother Salvius Titanus, who had been a leading figure in the previous government. All appeared as it should be as couriers arrived reporting the allegiance of the eastern armies. The legions, having fought for Otho at Cremona, also seemed to be accepting the new rule. Vitellius rewarded his German legions by disbanding the Praetorian Guard as well as the urban cohorts of the city of Rome and offering the positions to them. This was generally seen as a very undignified affair, but then Vitellius was only on the throne due to the German legions. He knew that just as they had the power to make him emperor, they could turn on him too. Hence he had little choice but to try and please them. But such pampering of allies was not what truly made Vitellius unpopular. It was his extravagance and his triumphalism. Had Otho died a dignified death, then Vitellius comments on the scent of death of a fellow Roman being very sweet when visiting the battlefield of Cremona, which was still littered with bodies at the time, did little to endear him to his subjects. But so too his partying, entertaining, and betting on the races offended the public. To top it all, Vitellius, after taking the position of Pontifex Maximus, high priest, made a pronouncement about worship on a day which was traditionally regarded as unlucky. Vitellius quickly gained a reputation as a glutton. He was said to eat 3 or 4 heavy meals a day, usually followed by drinks and partying, to which he invited himself at different houses each time. He was only able to consume this much by frequent bouts of self-induced vomiting. He was a very tall man with a vast belly. One of his thighs was permanently damaged from being run over by Caligula's chariot, when he had been in a chariot race with that emperor. Had the initial signs of taking power indicated he might enjoy a peaceful, though unpopular reign, things changed very quickly. Around the middle of July, news already arrived, that the armies of the eastern provinces had now rejected him. On the 1st of July they set up a rival emperor in Palestine, Titus Flavius Vespasianus, a battle-hardened general who enjoyed widespread sympathies among the army. Vespasian's plan was to hold Egypt while his colleague Musanius, governor of Syria, led an invasion force to Italy. But things moved faster than either Vitellius or Vespasian had anticipated. Antonius Primus, commander of the 6th Legion of Pannonia, and Cornelius Fascus, imperial procurator at Illyricum, declared their allegiance to Vespasian and led the Danube legions on an assault to Italy. Their force comprised only 5 legions, about 30,000 men, and was only half of what Vitellius had in Italy. But Vitellius could not count on his generals. Valens was ill, and Caecina, in a joint effort with the prefect of the fleet at Ravenna, attempted to change his allegiance from Vitellius to Vespasian, though his troops did not obey and instead arrested him. As Primus and Fascus invaded Italy, their force and that of Vitellius should meet almost at the same spot where the deciding battle for the throne had been fought some 6 months earlier. The Second Battle of Cremona began on the 24th of October, AD 69, and ended the next day in the utter defeat for the side of Vitellius. For 4 days, the victorious troops of Primus and Fuscus looted and burned the city of Cremona. Valens, his health somewhat recovered, attempted to raise forces in Gaul to come to his emperor's aid, but without success. Vitellius made a limp attempt to hold the Apennine passes against Primus and Fuscus' advance. However, the army he sent forth simply went over to the enemy without a fight at Narnia on the 17th of December.